Sadie, are you really going to leave me behind just for your career? Ethan's voice came rough and hoarse over the phone line. Inside the airport departure lounge, I clutched my flight ticket to Germany, my cold eyes sweeping over the flight details. For years ago, he'd stood me up countless times, all to run off from Macy. He'd even left me stranded alone at the marriage registry, letting me bear all the mocking stares by myself. Now I'm the second in charge at Wade accounting firm, yet he's chased me all the way to the airport, begging me to stay. Chapter 1. I stood inside the marriage license office hall, clutching a thin marriage application form. Sweat from my palms had softened the paper completely. The sky outside was dull gray, ready to pour rain, thick sticky humidity hanging heavy in the air. A clerk walked over to me, clear pity in her tone. Ma'am, we're closing soon. Is the person you're waiting for still not here? I glanced down at my phone. 10 missed call notifications stabbed at my eyes like sharp blades. I gritted my teeth and dialed him for the 11th time. All I got was a cold, busy tone, mocking my stubborn waiting. Sorry to trouble you. I'll wait 5 more minutes, I mumbled, forcing my voice not to shake. 5 minutes later, the office's front door slammed shut. It cut me off from the future I'd daydreamed about countless times. I stood on the sidewalk, stared up at the gloomy sky, and took a deep breath. I tore the application form into tiny shreds, tossed them into a nearby trash can, and threw away every last silly bit of hope I'd held onto. This was the 3rd time Ethan had stood me up on our scheduled wedding day. I loved him so deeply that I'd shrunk myself small just to fit his world. But I wasn't desperate enough to toss away every scrap of my self-respect. Ethan Hale, my love for you ends right here, I whispered, my words swept away by the wind. I hopped into a taxi and automatically pulled up my social media feed. A brand new post pierced straight through my heart. Old flame returns, overjoyed. Welcome Macy home, bright days ahead. Ethan was front and center in the photo, pressed shoulder to shoulder with his first love, Macy. She had once been my closest friend, yet the first person she texted after flying back wasn't me, it was him. I stared at the picture, tapped the like button with numb fingers, and a bitter smile tugged at my lips. Right then, a message popped up from my supervisor. The 200 million Starlight Group client project is all yours to lead. I snapped back to work mode. All my sadness got crushed under my professional instinct. Got it, I replied, calm as if nothing had broken my heart that day. Driver, head to Wade accounting firm, I told the taxi driver, my tone firm. Rather than go home to an empty silent apartment and spiral over heartbreak, I'd pull an all-nighter at the office. Money would never stab me in the back the way people did. 9 p.m. I dragged my exhausted body out of the office building. Street neon signs blazed bright, stinging my tired eyes. My apartment was pitch black and freezing cold when I walked in. I'd long grown used to this lonely silence. I'd just finished showering and was about to climb into bed when the doorbell rang loudly, out of place in the quiet night. I frowned and pulled the door open, freezing the second I saw who stood outside. Ethan could barely stand upright, dead drunk, half his weight leaning on Macy. They clung to each other like a matching couple. The sight drove a sharp blade straight through my chest. I stayed silent for a few seconds before I found my voice. Long time no see, Macy. Long time no see. Macy smiled cool, the same untouchable, perfect girl she'd always been. She asked casually, I held my welcome home dinner tonight. Why didn't you come? I clung to my last shred of dignity and answered flatly. Today was supposed to be the day Ethan and I signed our marriage papers. The air turned thick and silent. Macy's eyes flickered, and she pulled up a perfectly practiced apologetic expression. I'm so sorry I held you two up. It's fine, it was never a big deal anyway. I glanced at Ethan, passed out drunk, my heart a flat, empty lake. I stepped back and held the door open wider. Want to come inside for a minute? Macy blinked, politely turning me down. No, I just got back and have tons of errands to run. I'll leave Ethan in your hands. She paused, then spoke in a familiar, possessive tone. Ethan gets terrible splitting headaches the morning after drinking. Make sure you boil him honey hangover tea, add extra honey. She cut herself off and laughed softly. Where's my brain? You're his girlfriend. You definitely know all his little habits better than I do. Every word she spoke was a soft blade, carving raw pain into my chest. I knew every single one of his quirks, ever since I'd secretly crushed on him for 10 years. I'd memorized every tiny detail. But I didn't lose my cool. I just smiled faintly. Funny. You dumped him for an overseas work offer years ago, yet you still remember all his little preferences. Macy's smile froze tight on her face. I slammed the front door shut and dragged Ethan into the bedroom. I was wiping his face when his eyes flew open. The next second, a liquor-tasting kiss crashed onto my lips. I tried to push him away, but he was far too strong for me to break free. Dim bedroom light tangled our shadows together, stretching long across the carpet. In the chaos, my fingernails scraped a thin line across his back. He hissed in pain, then mumbled into my ear, slurring drunk words. Macy, stop messing around. My whole body went rigid. An invisible tight fist squeezed my heart so hard I could barely breathe. I closed my eyes and endured the rest in silence. Once it was over, I dug birth control pills out of the nightstand and swallowed them dry with cold tap water. A burning ache spread through my stomach instantly. Chapter 2. My alarm went off sharp at 6 a.m. the next morning. The spot beside me in bed was empty. I rushed through my morning routine and walked straight into Ethan in the hallway. He wore a crisp tailored suit, cold eyes fixed on me. Remember to take your pill. My heart twisted again, but I didn't tell him I'd already taken it. I just nodded quietly. Okay. He didn't want a child with me. Perfect. I didn't want to give him one either. He got my quiet reply and turned to leave, pausing at the door to add one more line. I had an emergency yesterday, that's why I missed our license appointment. We can go another day when I've got free time. I'd heard that exact line 3 times before. I said nothing, only replied, sure, whenever you're free. My calm reaction seemed to throw him off. He stared at me for a second, said nothing more, and walked out the door. The second I hit the office, I headed straight to admin. Cancel the marriage leave I submitted earlier, please. The admin supervisor stared in shock. What's going on? I thought you two were getting married. I shook my head, tone light and unbothered. We're not anymore. Before she could process that news, I slid a stack of paperwork across her desk. I've applied for the permanent transfer to our Germany branch. I'm leaving next month. The supervisor's jaw dropped open. Are you positive? You'll have to build everything from scratch over there with no existing local connections. I smiled, my gaze steady and determined. There's only so many senior management spots back home. If I want to climb higher, I've got to start fresh somewhere new. A few days later was Macy's birthday party. I stood in my walk-in closet, staring at racks full of white dresses, my mind drifting back to old years. For years, I'd copied Macy's soft, pale style just to match Ethan's taste, filling my closet with nothing but white. I'd forgotten that my true favorite color was bold, fiery red. Now that I'd made up my mind to leave, I'd start letting go of the past with one single outfit change. I dug a red mermaid gown out from the back of my closet. The fabric hugged every curve of my frame, bright and unmissable. I slathered on deep red lipstick and pulled my hair up into a sleek bun. The woman staring back at me in the mirror felt familiar, yet totally new. I arrived at the private party room right on time at noon. The second I stepped near the door, sharp voices drifted out to my ears. Macy, you really invited Sadie? What's she even going to talk about with our group? Exactly, she only went to a regular state university. Every single one of us here holds a master's from top elite research schools. If it weren't for Ethan's connection, she wouldn't even get an invite. Ethan, Macy's back now, just pick a side once and for all. Who's it gonna be? My footsteps froze mid-step. I'd always known Ethan's social circle never fully accepted me. He was a rising star in physics, the youngest full professor at the state's top research university, and all his friends thought I was far beneath his league. I'd swallowed every rude comment for his sake in the past. I didn't have to anymore. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The group fell silent for a split second, then laughed like nothing was wrong. Hey Sadie, we were just joking around. I tugged a dry, bitter smile across my face. Funny, really. I just wonder, does your annual salary even match my monthly performance bonus? Dead silence crashed over the whole room. The man who'd mocked me turned bright red, alternating between pale and furious. Ethan finally lifted his head, his tone icy cold. Sadie, that joke's not funny. I met his gaze straight on. See for yourself. When others mocked me, he stood by and said nothing. The second I fired back one single retort, he rushed to play the impartial judge. A heavy weight settled in my chest, then Macy glided over with a soft, sweet smile. Sadie's always had a sharp tongue, everyone. Don't take it to heart. Her passive-aggressive fake kindness made my skin crawl. A year ago, I would have blown up and started a screaming fight right then. Now, I didn't even have the energy to waste arguing with her. I pulled out a chair and sat down on my own. Yeah, I've always had a short fuse. Macy hadn't expected me to brush off her act without a fight, and her expression stiffened for a split second. Mid-dinner, another guest made a pointed jab. Mark's leading that national multi-million research grant project. Not like some people who only earn basic paychecks grinding overtime every day. I ignored the dig, glancing at Ethan sitting completely unaffected beside me. A dull sadness washed over me thinking about all the years I'd poured into this relationship. Once the food arrived, Macy picked up a spicy chicken wing from the platter. Ethan frowned instantly. Your stomach can't handle spicy food, don't you remember? I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. Ethan couldn't handle a single household chore on his own. I'd reminded him of every minor daily detail for years. Yet he memorized every single one of Macy's food preferences without a single prompt. I couldn't swallow a single bite of food that whole dinner. When the meal wrapped up, Ethan rushed to pay the bill. He and Macy walked ahead, while I trailed behind them like an invisible extra. Outside the hotel entrance, he asked Macy gently, "Is someone picking you up?" Macy nodded. "My brother's on his way." Right as she finished speaking, a car pulled up to the curb. A little boy jumped out straight into her arms. "Aunt Macy, happy birthday." When he spotted Ethan, he grinned wide and called out, "Uncle Ethan. I haven't seen you in ages." I froze solid where I stood. Chapter 3. Ethan shot a quick glance at me, but he didn't correct the boy's mistake. Instead, he ruffled the kid's hair and spoke to Macy. "Text me once you're safely home." Macy nodded, her eyes sliding over to me with a knowing, teasing smile. On the drive back to my apartment, he tried to explain himself. "I've always been close to that kid. Macy never told him we split up a long time ago." I turned my head to stare at him, the car's dim shadows hiding half his face. That excuse was ridiculous. He could have cleared up the confusion with one simple sentence, yet he'd chosen to stay silent. I twisted back to stare out the window, refusing to say another word to him for the rest of the ride. The next day, we finalized the preliminary agreement for the 200 million Starlight Group project. I hosted a small celebration cocktail party to mark the milestone and drank far more wine than I should have. Once the party wound down, my best friend Hazel grabbed my arm, frowning with worry. "How could everyone let you drink this much? What are we supposed to do with you now?" A coworker laughed. "Sadie's got a boyfriend, right? Call him to come pick her up." My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Ethan's contact name. Hazel hit answer and turned on speakerphone. Ethan's cold voice echoed through the room. "Sadie, where are you? Why haven't you come home yet?" My coworkers stared in shock. "Wait, Sadie has a boyfriend?" I never heard a single word about him. "She works overtime every single night. I've never seen anyone come pick her up." A short silence passed on the line, then his tone turned sharper. "Send me the address." Ethan arrived soon after. Most of my buzz had faded, and I sat alone on a lobby sofa staring into space. He walked over and stood towering over me. Was this really necessary? Getting dead drunk just for one project? My head spun from the alcohol, my first instinct to argue back. Of course it's necessary. But I caught the sharp disappointment in his eyes, and my resolve softened. I tugged lightly at the hem of his shirt. "Let's go home." His chest tightened. He exchanged a quick goodbye with Hazel, then lifted me into his car. I passed out in the passenger seat on the drive home. He glanced over at me, noticing the plain white blouse I'd worn that night, and the tight crease between his brows smoothed out a little. Back at the apartment, he carried me into the bathroom to sober me up, but I grabbed his tie and pulled him down to me. After we were intimate, I collapsed face first onto the bed, too drained to even roll over. Ethan stepped out of the bathroom, soft, satisfied warmth in his eyes. Then his phone blared a shrill ringtone. He saw Macy's name flash across the screen and answered instantly. Her panicked voice flooded the line. "Ethan, I left the stove on and burned the pan. There's smoke everywhere. I don't know what to do." His face paled with worry. "I'm on my way over right now." He hung up and rushed to change his clothes. When he caught me staring at him, he fumbled for a weak lie. "Lab emergency, I have to head out. Don't wait up for me tonight." With that, he sprinted out the door without a single backward glance. The second the front door slammed shut, the apartment drowned in total silence. I closed my eyes and laughed at my own humiliation. We'd just been together, yet he'd bolt without hesitation the second Macy needed trivial help. Not long after, my own phone rang. The caller ID read Macy. I already knew what this call was. She was calling to rub her victory in my face. I pressed accept, and her teary voice hit my ears immediately. "Ethan, let's get back together. You still love me, don't you? Otherwise you wouldn't drop everything and rush over the second I called you away from Sadie." My breath caught, my knuckles white from squeezing the phone tight. Then I heard Ethan's rough, quiet reply. "I'm still in love with you, that's the truth." The call cut off. The cold glow of the phone screen lit up my pale, drained face. In that moment, I couldn't tell if the pain came from him abandoning me or grief over how easily he'd forgiven the woman who'd once left him behind. Chapter 4. The next morning at the accounting firm, I got word the German headquarters leadership team was flying in for a site visit, and we'd be hiking the Great Wall that afternoon. As the soon-to-be overseas regional lead, I had no choice but to tag along for the trip. We hiked for hours, my lungs burning and legs throbbing. I just sat down to catch my breath when a water bottle appeared in front of my face. I lifted my head, fully convinced I was hallucinating from exhaustion. It was Ethan. He twisted the cap open and held the bottle to my lips for me to sip, and my head cleared enough to register what was happening. "How did you get here?" He ignored my question and gestured to the man beside him. "This is my girlfriend, Sadie." Then he turned to introduce me. "Zach, a research fellow from the Eastern Regional Lab." I held out my hand politely. "Nice to meet you." Zach shook my hand with a wide grin. "Dude, you've kept this gorgeous girlfriend hidden for ages. What line of work are you in?" Ethan hesitated for a split second, answering vaguely. "A small local accounting firm." I raised an eyebrow at him. He didn't even know the full name of the company I'd dedicated 4 years of my life to. I added on calmly. "I work at Wade Accounting Firm, one of the global Big Four accounting networks." Zach's eyes went wide, then he playfully punched Ethan's shoulder. "You're kidding me. The Big Four is top-tier finance work. You call that a small firm?" Ethan's whole body stiffened, complex emotions swirling in his eyes as he stared at me. Zach walked off to give us space, leaving the two of us to climb the trail side by side. His jaw stayed tight the whole time, lost in his own thoughts. I sighed and laid all my cards out on the table. "I'm a senior fund portfolio manager at Wade, in charge of investment asset management." He stared down at his shoes, refusing to meet my gaze. "Why are you telling me all this?" I spoke softly, no trace of anger in my tone. "No big reason. I just thought you could mention more than just my girlfriend when you introduced me to your colleagues." I wasn't only his girlfriend. I was my own person, with my own career and identity. He frowned, a hint of irritation creeping into his voice. "Our industries are totally separate fields. How was I supposed to know Wade Accounting Firm's standing?" I fell silent for a beat, then laughed faintly. "You're right. We've always lived in 2 completely separate worlds." I quickened my pace to catch up with the leadership team ahead. The lead manager smiled at me. "Is this your boyfriend?" I nodded. "Yes." He joked lightheartedly. Aren't you sad to move to Germany alone? Won't you bring him with you? Ethan walked over, his gaze fixed far off at the distant mountain peaks, no reaction to the question. I smiled faintly and looked away first. He couldn't speak a word of German, so I answered the manager in fluent German right in front of him. I'm perfectly fine going alone. Once we finished touring the wall and I'd seen the leadership team off, I only found Zach waiting around. He nodded toward the souvenir shop. Ethan ran to grab bottled water. I nodded back in acknowledgement. Zach was a talkative guy, and he rambled freely. I'm in town to run opening testing for the city's new Space Museum branch. Ethan spent 4 years building this entire project. It's opening tomorrow. You're gonna come, right? I remembered Ethan mentioning the Space Museum once before, and I replied flatly. He never told me about the opening. Plus, I have a full day of client meetings tomorrow. I can't make it. Zach looked surprised, then pulled a printed admission ticket out of his bag. He must have forgotten to mention it. You're his girlfriend. You can't miss the grand opening. I took the ticket, my heart heavy with tangled feelings. Ethan walked back over and handed me a water bottle. What did Zach chat your ear off about? I shook my head. Nothing important. The next morning, I sat on the living room couch and watched him slip into a custom-tailored designer suit, dressed like he was heading to a prestigious industry gala. I've got a busy day today, I might get home late, he tossed out casually right before walking out the door. It was clear he'd never planned to invite me to the museum opening. I replied calmly, all right, good luck with the launch event. He froze mid-step toward the door. How did you find out about? His sentence cut off mid-thought as his phone started ringing. He picked up instantly, his tone soft and gentle. You're already there? I was gonna head over early to pick you up. Macy's faint voice hummed through the receiver. The front door shut, cutting off the rest of their conversation. I pulled the museum ticket out and stared at it for a long time. In the end, I dialed my assistant's number. Reschedule all my afternoon client meetings. I've got somewhere I need to go. 2 p.m. I stepped through the front doors of the Space Museum. Chapter 5. For years ago, I'd set foot in this same building. Back then, Ethan had planned a grand confession for Macy right here, and I'd spent the whole day single-handedly decorating the venue for him. Today, whose spotlight would this grand opening really belong to? The stage lights flickered to life, and Ethan stepped out onto the platform, tall, poised, commanding every eye in the room. He gripped the microphone and spoke confidently to the crowd. This deep space-themed museum is a joint project between the City Council and my research lab. I've spent 4 full years bringing this project to life. His gaze drifted to Macy seated in the front row, his voice softening completely. I once made a promise to someone that we'd explore the mysteries of the universe side by side. We lost 4 years to distance, and this museum is my gift to her. Macy, thank you for being here today. Thunderous applause filled the hall. Every single guest looked touched and emotional. I stood frozen in the crowd, watching him walk over to take her hand and pull her onto the stage, embracing her tight under the bright stage spotlights. I couldn't bear to watch another second. I turned and walked straight out, nearly crashing into a flustered Zach on my way out. He opened his mouth to say something, but I stepped around him without a single word, acting as if I'd never set foot inside the museum at all. I headed straight back to the accounting firm and buried myself in stacks of work documents. I would have been better off sitting through my afternoon client meetings instead of coming here today. I finished work and drove home. The second I parked my car, I spotted Ethan and Macy walking side by side under the complex streetlights, looking every bit a matching couple. Macy's new apartment, the one Ethan had helped her rent, was just one building over from mine. I stepped closer and caught the end of their conversation. Thank you for the gift, I loved it. His voice was gentle beyond belief. I'm glad it suited you. They reached the ground floor entrance of her building to say goodbye. He stood there watching her walk up the stairs. But she paused halfway, biting her lip. I feel bad making you walk me home this late. Won't Sadie get upset if she finds out? His brows creased with mild annoyance. I stepped out from behind a tree, my tone completely neutral. I don't mind at all. Walking a friend home is no big deal, right? Macy's face stiffened, forcing a fake smile onto her lips. I guess I was overthinking it. I glanced at Ethan once, then walked straight past him toward my own building. He hurried to catch up beside me, yet not a single word of explanation crossed his lips the whole way up the stairs. Once inside my apartment, a message popped up from Hazel. We're throwing a farewell party for you this Saturday. You have to come no matter what. I smiled, then glanced up at Ethan. I've got a party this Saturday night. Do you want to come along? He blinked, clearly shocked I'd extended an invitation to him. He met my calm, unreadable eyes and answered automatically. Sure, I'll be there. Saturday evening, I arrived at the party venue on time. My friends crowded around me, sad and reluctant to see me leave the country. It's gonna be so hard getting together once you're in Germany. I pulled each of them into a warm hug. Don't worry. Once I build a solid career over there, I'll fly all of you out to visit. Hazel kept glancing toward the door, confused. You said your boyfriend was coming. Where is he? I just opened my mouth to reply when Ethan's voice sounded behind me. Sorry I'm not late, am I? I spun around, my heart dropping to my stomach. He'd shown up, and he'd brought Macy along beside him. Every single friend in the room stared in stunned silence. He acted totally unbothered by all the stares and explained casually. Macy heard we were having a get-together and wanted to tag along. You don't mind, do you? I pulled a hollow smile across my face. Of course I minded. But they were already standing in the room. What could I possibly do? Kick her out? Come on in. The entire dinner passed in thick, awkward silence. Ethan served Macy food right in front of everyone at the table. Here, your favorite beef stew with potatoes. Hazel scoffed out loud. Ethan, Sadie can't reach her favorite dish over there. Could you pass him over for her too? He froze, completely lost for what to grab from the serving platters. I forced an awkward laugh. I've got it myself, no trouble. He didn't have the slightest clue what foods I love to eat. Chapter 6. The dinner wrapped up under a heavy, uncomfortable atmosphere. Hazel refused to let the night end on a sour note and suggested an after-party. Now that we're full, let's head to the board game cafe next door to play werewolf. I hesitated, ready to turn her idea down, but Ethan nodded in agreement before I could speak. Our whole group walked over to the board game shop together. Hazel acted as game host and dealt out identity cards for everyone to look at privately. The group closed their eyes to start the round. The game progressed quickly round after round, only 2 werewolves left alive in the final stretch. Ethan held the seer role and had already exposed 1 wolf, leaving a single hidden werewolf uncaught. I played the witch, my antidote keeping me alive all the way to the final round. By pure coincidence, Macy was the last remaining werewolf. I locked eyes with Ethan. You've seen my identity card. Vote Macy out with me, and our human team wins. But Macy leaned forward, voice soft and pleading. Ethan, I'm not the wolf. Please trust me just this once? Hazel crossed her arms, annoyed. Let's just cast our votes already. Macy and I both pointed fingers at each other, all eyes turning to Ethan as the tiebreaker. He hesitated for a long moment, then spoke in a deep, heavy tone. I'm voting Sadie as the werewolf. I froze completely. Before I could process what had just happened, Hazel let out a sharp, cold laugh. What's the point of playing this game if someone gets to win just by batting their eyelashes and begging? Macy's eyes welled up with fake tears, staring at Ethan pitifully. I don't know what I did wrong for everyone to gang up on me like this. I'll just leave if I'm not welcome. She bolted out the door, and Ethan shot up from his chair instantly. He turned to me, his tone sharp and cold. It's just a silly board game. Was it really necessary to make such a big fuss? He rushed out after her without another word. I instinctively grabbed his wrist to hold him back. Don't leave. All my closest friends sat watching us. If he walked out right then, I'd be left embarrassed and alone in front of everyone I cared about. His eyes flickered with conflict, but he ripped his arm free from my grip. Drinks are on my tab for everyone. Enjoy yourselves. He left without a single second of hesitation. I stared at his retreating back, my heart turned to ice-cold stone. My friends sat silent, and Hazel's face filled with guilt. I'm so sorry, Sadie. I never thought it'd turn out like this. I pulled myself back together and forced a bright smile for them. It's fine, you guys were just sticking up for me. This is my farewell party. We should be celebrating, right? Beneath the cafe's warm lights, I lifted my glass high. Cheers to me. May my career in Germany soar and all my dreams come true. My friends exchanged sad glances, eyes glistening with emotion, then clinked their glasses hard against mine in a loud toast. Here's to your bright future and every dream you chase. After the party ended, I received a flight confirmation text from the airline company. Ms. Reed, your flight HU7388 departing from Beijing to Germany will take off at 6 p.m. on February 15, 2025. We wish you a pleasant journey. 2 days later, I'd walk away from Ethan for good. I pushed all messy thoughts aside and started packing my suitcases. Ethan came home to find me folding clothes, yet he didn't react at all to the sight of packed luggage. I've got research work to finish. I'm heading to bed, he mumbled, walking straight into the master bedroom. He clearly thought I'd never actually leave him, or maybe he simply didn't care one way or the other. While sorting through my belongings, I found 2 vintage theater raffle tickets tucked at the bottom of my bag. We'd won them at a random theater event half a year prior. We'd made a promise to watch the play together, but once Macy flew back to the country, he'd completely forgotten our plans, and neither of us had brought the tickets up again. I held the tickets up and called him over from the bedroom. Let's use these tickets to watch the play tomorrow night. He replied casually without a second thought. Sure, sounds fine. The next day, we arrived at the theater. The play running was Red Rose, White Rose, Eileen Chang's classic novella adaptation. The male lead's monologue pulled me deep into the story, my mind wandering back to my own life. Every man has 2 women in his life. If he marries his Red Rose, the red fades to a dried blood stain on the wall, and the white remains an unreachable moonlight glow. If he marries his White Rose, the white turns to a stale grain of rice stuck to a bowl, and the red becomes an unforgettable scarlet mark burned into his heart. My eyes stung with unshed tears as I thought of myself. Macy was his pure, untouchable white moonlight rose. As for me, I wasn't even worth being a dried blood stain to him. I glanced over at Ethan, only to find him rapidly typing a text on his phone. Macy's name glowed bright on the screen, stabbing straight through my chest. What are you up to? I'm so bored alone at home. Can you come over? She'd written. Give me a minute. I'll head over right away. He typed back quickly. He lifted his head and caught my gaze staring at his phone screen, confused. What's wrong? Did you not like the play? I shook my head. Nothing's wrong. The play reached its final scene, and we walked out to the theater front doors. I knew he was burning with urgency to rush to Macy's place, yet I couldn't stop myself from trying one last gentle plea to close this chapter cleanly. Let's head home and eat dinner together. I bought all your favorite ingredients to cook. He cut me off without a single pause. I can't, I've got plans. It's just one quick meal. It won't take up much of your time. I tried one more time, clinging to a tiny sliver of hope. But his gaze stayed cold and distant. Maybe another day I'll make time for you then. All my lingering hope faded away completely. I spoke softly, at total peace with the end of us. All right, I understand. Chapter 7. I watched him hail a taxi and drive out of sight, whispering quiet words only I could hear. There will never be another next day, Ethan. Back at the apartment, I booked a courier service to ship all my extra clothing back to my parents' house. Every couple photo, every matching couple trinket we'd owned got bundled up and tossed straight into the trash bin outside the building. I grabbed stacks of sticky yellow notepaper and left final reminders scattered around the apartment for him. A note stuck to the fridge: all fresh vegetables expire in 3 days. Frozen chicken is in the bottom freezer drawer. Remember to thaw before cooking. A note taped to the washing machine: dry clean all wool blazers and formal suits. Separate light and dark colored laundry to avoid color bleeding. A note pinned to the balcony railing: water the potted plants once a week, otherwise they'll wilt and die. Yellow sticky notes covered nearly every surface of the apartment walls and furniture. For whole years of my quiet, gentle love, all written down on thin strips of paper. Yet every single small reminder I'd ever left for him before, he'd read once and tossed aside without a second thought. I stuck one final sticky note onto his desktop computer monitor. Ethan Hale, happy breakup. That was the end of everything between us. I grabbed my rolling suitcase and stepped out of the 4-year apartment we'd shared. The front door clicked shut behind me, no more echoes, no more waiting for him to come home. Ethan was supposed to never find out I'd left for good. But he'd always kept security cameras installed around the apartment building's entrance. He pulled up the camera feed on his laptop, and the words "happy breakup" on the sticky note froze him solid in his chair. Macy sat beside him in his lab office, having lured him over with fake lab emergency excuses. She watched his face darken with panic and grew uneasy. What's wrong? He didn't waste a single word explaining, jumping straight to his feet and grabbing his coat. I'm wrapping work up early today. You can handle the rest of the lab reports alone. Macy reached out to grab his arm, trying to hold him back. Is this about Sadie? She'll get over it. You don't have to rush over there. His tone turned icy sharp. I don't need your input on this. He grabbed his jacket and sprinted out of the lab without a single backward glance. Macy's face darkened with anger, and she pulled out her phone to dial a contact. Run a full background check on someone for me. Ethan dialed my phone nonstop on the drive back to the apartment, only to hit a constant, number unreachable, automated message every time. His jaw clamped tight, his knuckles white around the steering wheel, a frantic panic he'd never felt before swirling in his chest. He rushed into the apartment the second he arrived home, and the wall covered in yellow sticky notes crashed over him all at once. Every small reminder of my love hit his heart like a heavy hammer. He read every single note one by one, all his rational thoughts crumbling apart completely. He remembered me mentioning Wade accounting firm once before, and he rushed straight to the office building address to find me. The front desk receptionist blocked him at the lobby entrance without a pre-scheduled meeting. I'm Sadie Reed's boyfriend. I need to speak to her urgently. Can you get her on the line? Sweat beaded up on his palms as he spoke. The receptionist stared at him with obvious doubt. If you're her boyfriend, why can't you just text her directly? He had no answer to give her. Right at that moment, the leadership manager eyed toward the Great Wall walked past and clapped Ethan on the shoulder. Ethan rushed forward, speaking to him in rushed, broken English. We met at the Great Wall hike, you remember me? The manager smiled gently. You won't find Sadie here at the office. Ethan's head shot up in shock. What do you mean? She's relocated overseas permanently. She's not coming back to this city. He stood frozen to the spot. Overseas? The manager nodded slowly. She submitted her permanent transfer application to Germany 1 full month ago. Ethan's face turned ashen gray. 1 month ago. That was exactly the time Macy had flown back to the country. So I'd been planning to leave him long before any of our recent fights and misunderstandings.